Anything you needed? All right.
How's California?
It was good.
No, I think we're good. I think we're
It was
good.
a lot of fun.
What did you decide about your travel?
How can it be though, right?
Well, we were all there.
Yeah.
Man, that was a lot to keep.
All right. Well, let me know if there's
You have
anything I can
sheepdog
do.
herding together.
All right, take care. You bet. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
John was called last night because Matt
4 different,
called
the hotel loved us. 4 different rooms.
Oh. Wow.
They're not worried about it the whole night.
Yeah, we
I'm like, oh, they wouldn't take him.
stayed at the Sheraton and walked
They had this meeting
to the park.
and and he's, I said, well, maybe you were gonna leave or something, you start back. He goes, for every meeting, when you have so many people show up to this faculty meeting, just such crap. Oh, get yours about.
Oh, good. Good evening. Thanks for being here. I think we're going to start. That clock always is a couple minutes. Yeah, I say 5:31. I think that's official time. So we're going to go ahead and get started because this is going to be a fast meeting. I want to recognize everyone that's here tonight. Councilman Saxton, Councilmember Wilson, Councilmember Jackson, and myself, Jan Burrell. I'm acting as pro tem mayor tonight. We hope Mayor Dandoy and Councilmember Paul have safe travels. They're out of town right now, and we're wishing them safe travels. So we'll start with a moment of silence and our Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember Wilson has agreed to lead us in that.
If you'll please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. If you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have only one item on our consent agenda tonight, and that's the approval of the August 17th, 2021 council meeting minutes. Hopefully we've all had a chance to read them, and are there any concerns or questions? I would entertain a motion then that we accept them.
I move to approve the August 17th, 2021 Roy City Council meeting minutes.
I'll second it. Thank you. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, that brings us right to our public comments. Do we have anyone wishing to make public comment tonight? If not, we'll go ahead and move forward on that. We have an action item, the proposed resolution 2021, establishing a red curb marking policy. We talked about a policy, and we'll let Matt lead us through that. He has been working hard on that over the past few weeks.
Alrighty, thank you. As you all know, we have discussed in previous city council meetings about doing a policy about red curb parking in our city. Primarily around the parks is where the issue has been. But this policy is more generalized and basically documenting what we do. I wanted to talk about just a brief rundown of the policy, but then talk about some of the things that the policy is missing or how do we handle some of the situations that we're currently in. So as you know, just like the last city council meeting, we have certain requests for red curb parking in the city for various reasons. Some of them are tipping on the driveway approaches, some of them, we usually do a lot of these for the fire hydrants and the safety issues ourselves without any type of people coming in asking for permits. Usually when people come and request it, it's primarily been around issues with city parks and parking on the street. And so this policy will address that. It will allow for an administration to take hold of the application from a resident and be able to evaluate the safety concerns with that red curb. We'll take into the guidelines situations and evaluate that. And if there is a safety concern, we'll go ahead and mark that red. If there is not a safety concern, there's an appeal process through the city council that they can come here and approach the city council to see if they want it to be added or removed. That's pretty much been the policy thus far anyway. The administration has been taking the initiative to do anything safety related, but this is more of a documented process of that. That process would be administered through our Public Works Department. More of the safety issues would be going through our police department to make those determinations. And then ultimately, Public Works will be painting the curb if approved. Some of the things that this policy does not address is in two particular locations in the city. There's two places where red curb is currently there, and there is parking permits for the residents that live there as well. I had a hard time addressing that into the policy because from an administrative perspective, if we're only marking it red for safety issues, it's not fair to say that we should issue permits and go against that safety guideline. I can understand that if we're marking it red for other purposes, that there could be a particular use for a permit. So a couple of follow-up things is what direction do we want to give for the future of those two areas? Do we want to consider doing parking permits? But this policy does not address that right now. We can take that up when we get our first application that doesn't have safety issues with it and take that up then. We can ultimately do that too. My recommendation would just leave things as is until the applications come in, but I wanted to have that in the open dialogue tonight.
So currently, Matt, the two ways that it can go is it can be red curbed or it can be red curbed. Is that correct?
Yeah, so currently there's places that
That's
are red
that's
curb
what
that people would.
the policy addresses is either removing the red curb or implementing a red curb.
Yes.
It doesn't address what do you call them?
The permits?
Permits.
Correct.
So,
Yep. One
but
thing
but we could have that conversation when and if such conversation comes forth. Is that right?
Correct. And
Okay.
I wanted to make note of it because it is an issue that I see that isn't being addressed in this policy, but is an issue out there. Now, it's maybe we can argue that it's not a today issue, but wanted to bring it up. Another thing is if we do
What
away,
would that look like? Brody, maybe you can answer this question for grandfathering something in or whatever you call that. I mean, I know that's not the legal terminology, but
Yeah, to be blunt, that's essentially what we would do is grandfather in what's been done at those two other locations for the simple reason that they have been done. I think, quite frankly, when you look at what's been done, I don't know legally how it was done. So yeah, we would just have to say as a council and administration that it was approved. When it was approved, we're not going to take it away, but we'll just address that individually if it ever comes up again.
okay.
So you're
Thank you.
talking two locations, Roy West Park and Emma Russell? Is that what you're talking?
and there is a third location down there off of 5600, just down below 27. What street is that?
Fox Glen.
Fox Glen Park was the one that was addressed last week.
But down, we had in the council
Yeah, the one in the council last week was Fox Glen, which is
about 2 years ago, I think.
30, McCall Field as well.
There's one off of 56 too.
So,
Yeah, there's.
so again, currently we have some things, so they would have to either apply to have it changed from red curb to no red curb, or from no red curb to red curb.
Yeah.
And then, other than that, we would leave things happening as they are currently happening.
And one issue that the Public Works Department does have is that once you paint that red, there is not an easy way to get that off.
Okay.
Basically, grinding that off is the only way, and then you're ruining the cement there as well.
And that's also an expense to the city. So we would hope they would make good decisions before they red curb something.
And the policy does also address if a citizen does take it upon themselves to paint it red, that we would remove it and
At their expense.
at their expense, and it could also be criminal
Okay.
for them, so.
Just for the record, I also asked Matt, what if a vehicle is blocking an entrance or an exit to a private home? And he said, that is not legal. That is outside of legal. And so if they were to call police or dispatch at that time, the vehicle can be towed at the owner's expense, not at the expense of the homeowner.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted that to be.
But didn't you have the problem of people who had permits down by Roy West copying them for other vehicles?
We have had problems with that, yes, down at Emma, where they have permits for one single house or one single vehicle, and then they make copies of it.
Okay, so that would have to be addressed too if that were reported. Is that correct?
So if the red paint's wearing off, and so do they have, and we want to get rid of it, because I discussed not having it down at Roy West Park, during the peak season of ball games and stuff. We kind of talked about what side we'd maybe do. So once it's starting to wear off, do we go door to door and tell all those people we might not repaint that red, or?
I don't think you could do that, Ann, if it was currently there. I mean, it would have to be replaced as is. You can't just say, well, it's wearing off, so we no longer have it.
But if we decided to do away with it, would we just paint it white?
They would have to apply to have it removed.
Or somebody apply, yeah.
Somebody would have to apply to have it
Okay.
removed. They can't just say, oh, it's wearing off, so it's no longer there.
But the physical removal of it most likely would be easier to paint white than paint or take the paint off.
Right.
Yes. So ultimately, when the decision is made one way or the other, either reapplying red paint or white paint probably would be the direction on that. Wouldn't it? Okay. Kind of yeah.
So again, unless it were legally removed, the red is still there. Is that what I'm hearing, Ross? Does that sound right?
So I have a question in regards to the permit process and actually looking into the future. So the legislature has approved the accessory dwelling units. We're going to be having a lot more high-density housing, which, of course, is encouraging single-car families, but we have heard documentation that that's very unlikely. And we already have some areas where parking is somewhat limited. So this may or may not be a directly correlating, but kind of associated. Maybe, Brody, you can give us an idea. What kinds of things could we look forward to that? Because I can see that this parking, is going to be increasing problem, not a decreasing problem. And it's so nice to not have other people parking all the time in front of your yard, and it is public, and there you have it.
So it is a good question. Specific to the permits, I find it difficult to kind of wrap a real good legal reason or authority to issue that. I think ultimately we all need to analyze this. I understand people's frustration with parking in front of your house or your yard, but it's not your property, right? So in my mind, if you're red curbing something in the future, you're doing it for a safety reason or for an ingress, regress issue, or some logical reason as to why this public property is not at use for the public. So to issue permits, I would just say we need to think of a really good reason why it's appropriate to say
Some people
this
can park
public
here.
property is banned for everyone but me.
So who approves the permit once it's applied for? Is it like you guys?
What are we talking about?
The
Saying there
curbing,
would
like-
be no permit
Oh.
in the future.
There would be no future permits.
That wouldn't make sense because it's not a safety issue is what I'm hearing from our
Are you talking about?
assistant
Are we talking
attorney.
about the painting or?
Yeah,
the
I'm just
actual-
saying if somebody wants red curbing, they think it's a safety hazard or, you know, I thought you said they had to get a permit
Yeah,
to,
okay, so I think we're using two permits in two different ways. The process for curbing is what Matt's talking about. That's what the city would go through in deciding whether or not to paint the curb red.
right.
And then the permit issue is a little bit different in that these are the special permits that were created to make a few people happy, to allow them to park on the red
So
curb.
he's saying there would
So
be
they're
no
two
more of
different.
that.
I'm speaking solely to the permit to park in what is deemed
Currently red
a
curb.
red curb area or a no parking zone essentially.
Okay.
Any other conversation or comment we want to take on that before we go ahead and propose a resolution?
I just, a comment
Go
real
ahead, Brian.
quick. You go under evaluation criteria.
Mhm.
The first two listed pretty much is there evidence of a safety problem? And will the requested curb marking affect motorists safely? Those are gonna be the two big issues that you're always gonna wrestle with. And I would think that's 75–80% of your permits that come in are gonna be based on those two. So if you feel like this document addresses those, then I think it needs to be approved.
Well, I think the problem in the past has been that we had no ordinance regulating it. And so this would create that ordinance, and then it would create a process for appealing that ordinance or implementing and appealing those pieces.
Makes it official.
Okay, I would entertain a motion then on 2122, establishing a red curb marking policy.
I move that we accept proposed resolution 21-22.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all those, this calls for a roll call vote, so we'll turn that.
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So the next thing that came on our agenda is a discussion item for camping in the city. And I think that the mayor sent us specifically some a point paper on that, along with some other background information. I have reviewed that information. I'd like to do a little more investigation personally as a council member before we make any recommendations going forward. But if somebody else wants to address that, I'm fine with that too.
I agree. I think more needs to be done. Is this where somebody does a presentation, or we just, Matt, do you talk about it first, or we just kind of talk about it now, or?
I can talk a little bit about it if you would like. Really, the issue here with the city council is that this would be a planning commission
It'd be a
ordinance that
zoning.
needs, a zoning ordinance that needs to be adjusted. So the direction here in the city council to have them actually take the time to create an ordinance is what needs to be addressed. addressed. Does it warrant the time or does it not? Really, if you look, this has been an issue in the larger cities. You've seen some issues down in the Salt Lake Valley, where there's been some news press on this issue. Really, in a nutshell, what it comes down to is that if there is somebody camping on the city streets or just parking, when you think of camping, it's not with the awning out and the barbecue and stuff. Sometimes they're just in their RV sleeping there. There's really no recourse from the city to do anything about it. The only ordinances that we do have on the books is to say that they can't do it in the parks after 11 o'clock because we can trespass them, or on the city streets that they can't be parked there for longer than 48 hours. I've only had a couple of issues here in Roy City, but a lot of the larger cities are doing something right now about it and creating ordinances. In Mayor's Point paper, there is an example of an ordinance. Can I tell you that it's going to trickle here? I don't know. It could, it may not.
The other
It's
thing I
becoming
think
an issue elsewhere.
I think we'd have to look at would be what would our enforcement look like and what would the cost of that be. So I think those are some things we'd need to investigate before we give a directive to our Planning and Zoning Commission to move
agree.
forward on that. That would be my thought.
So currently, it sounds like it's not allowed because we at least have the current ordinance, but it's the code enforcement officer that would be policing this. Is that what I understand then?
And to really say that they can park there for 48 hours, a lot of the time what they'll do is they'll park in a place for 24 hours and then leave and then go somewhere else the next day.
Move.
So really, they're not violating anything. And so when we get calls or complaints about somebody in their neighborhood living in the front yard in a camper, on the books, there's not a whole lot we can do about it if they leave the next day.
And we just have to decide if that's a big problem or big enough problem to
Yes.
even,
I'd have to think
address
about
it.
that too.
Yeah.
You know, just from a different, playing devil's advocate a bit. What if I have a family in town who are parked in front of my house and want to stay there for over 48 hours? That would be a bit of a problem. It could be
absolutely.
an issue. So I think we'd have to look at that and
I agree.
how to make that
Absolutely.
possible.
Could a relative park in your driveway and not on the road?
They
Would
can
that-
already do that.
They can already,
Technically,
yeah.
right now, they could already do that. I don't think they could be able to reside there, but if they did it for a couple of days, there's really not a whole lot we could do about it. Being in the public street as well, as long as they're not there for 48 hours.
But more than 48
But more than
hours.
48 hours, if they move their vehicle,
What if they
5
move it
inches.
10 feet?
Yeah, go
10
around the
feet,
block and come
we're
back.
good.
I
So,
mean, how,
I think we need to do a little.
yeah, because
from
that would
my
be hard to
perspective, we need to
enforce.
do a little
I
more
mean,
of this.
unless it's like on 25th Street, they go along with the chop mark and mark your tire, see if you've been there too long. I don't know.
And again, how do we create that enforcement?
Well, Matt, on a couple of occasions, I've called Matt because neighbors have called me wanting a semi-truck to move after it had been there over 48.
Yeah.
And so I remember, do you remember you happened to go out?
And we do have size restrictions and stuff that
And
they
I
can be
think-
only.
I think our enforcement people have been really good about looking at what we currently have on the
Yeah.
books and making that.
Yeah,
But currently, if a complaint came in to say, I want this person removed from my front yard, there's not a whole lot we can do.
And
And
then
Other
that's what
than
the
we
point
could
papers
talk
said.
to them.
Yeah, we could talk to
And
them.
they would warn
And they
them. It
would
says, give
probably-
them a fix-it ticket. Warn them, tell them they can't do it because they might not know. that they
Over
can't park
48
there.
hours.
Right.
Over 48 hours. so.
I think it warrants a conversation, but not much more than that right now. Now, I have just another little question. Are we concerned about more the trail area and vagrants or something like that, or is that not part of this conversation?
That's
think the mayor would be maybe the only one who could specifically answer this, but from my understanding, this isn't like something they're talking about people who are staying there long-term. This is kind of short-term
Okay,
traffic. You know,
Thank
if
you.
you have a motorhome show up in front of your house and park on the road, and they say, well, we're gonna spend the night right here. You know, like Matt said, there are plenty of ordinances and criminal laws for people who are camping where they shouldn't be, or
okay,
or putting down, you know, long-term living situations. That's not what we're talking about here.
okay, thank you, Matt. Yeah, thank you, Brody. Any other discussion? So I think we continue to look at it, look into it, maybe get some data on what kind of numbers we've had. That would be interesting to me to know how many requests have we had to investigate that kind of information before we make a recommendation to our planning and zoning.
I agree.
Anything else
No,
on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that brings us to our city manager and council report. We'll go ahead with Matt first.
I just have a couple of things. So next Monday, October 25th, just a reminder about the trunk or treat the city will be hosting. Our location is council and administration. We'll be down at Emma Russell and we'll be dressing like ducks, maybe.
I
Just
think
kidding.
Duck Dynasty.
Duck Dynasty. So come on out.
If
for
you're going to be in
residents
a
and-
duck costume, I can't wait to see it.
Nah, I'm just teasing. She's gonna go get me one.
What time's that at?
It is from 5 to 8 o'clock. So
Dress warm.
dress warm.
It's supposed to rain too.
So, and also for the next 2 weeks, Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., and then on Saturday, 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, the dumpsters will be opened. So it started yesterday.
Say that again, Matt. 6:30 to 5.
6:30 to 5, and then on Saturday, 8 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m., closed Sundays. And that will go through the end of next week.
And as in the Saturday.
Yep.
The end of that, okay.
So that would be the 30th.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's the 30th.
Okay.
And
Thank
then
you.
also, last thing, I did receive an email from ALCAP. They are doing a ribbon cutting for their Head Start site here in Roy. That will be at Friday at 4 o'clock, October 22nd, and you are all welcome to go.
That was going to be my
Oh,
comment.
sorry about that.
So no, that's all good. Yeah, they are very anxious for whoever wants to see that site. They seem to have been a pretty good business along our 1900. It looks good, and
Come along well.
so they would be
This
anxious
is
to have
Friday
you
at
see
4
it.
o'clock.
Yes, the 22nd at 4 p.m.
Okay. Well, no football game then, so.
All right.
That's all for me.
Council members, comments, reports?
Yeah, I've got just two quick ones. Starbucks has announced that it's coming to Roy, and they'll be located down there near the new 7-Eleven. So anyway, it'll be about a 2,100 square foot building. They're actually called cafes, so it's Starbucks Cafe.
Awesome.
Got a phone call today. Bahama Bucks is going in on the corner of 6,000 and 3,500.
Where the new dental office place is?
Yes,
What's it called?
Bahama Bucks.
And what is it?
What's that?
It does shaved ice,
Oh.
hot chocolate, lattes,
Drinks.
Drinks.
yeah, just
Okay.
specialty drinks.
Is that a
There's one
chain?
in North Salt Lake.
Oh,
I think that is the closest one to us. And they involve the same owner. but they're kind of very hot, very chic, very, very high traffic. So I don't know if you guys have heard from the owner, William Howe,
I have not personally.
but that's who contacted me. Anyway, so good news and more good news. And soon I'll be able to talk right. Give me a couple of more weeks and I'll be there. So.
All right. Anything, Councilmember Wilson? Councilmember Jackson?
I was just going to bring up, remember a long time ago when we brought up about helping citizens who couldn't pay their utility bills? But then we kind of never talked about it again.
Yeah, we actually, one of the next part of the process is we're doing the audit this week, and we're going to talk to our auditors about doing something like that. So it's in conversation still.
And just to update on our signs, welcome to Roy City. They will be done in the near future. I'm going to hunt the guy down. He was out of town for a while, but cement's poured, the posts are poured. He just needs to put the rock on it and do the engraving, and he promised me it's going to be soon. So I'm going to hound them until they're up.
Okay. One other thing, a big thank you from the Boys and Girls Club, because we house them here very close to our city offices, and they appreciated all the support they got from Roy City on their their recent fundraisers. So thank you very much for those who participated in that and helped with that. Thank you. Anything else? I would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Does everybody come watch Roy High play Friday at 4 o'clock against Westlake?
Go Royals.
So I motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.